Winning a championship is the ultimate goal of anyone related to the NBA. However, doing it is not an easy task, as it requires to have not only talented players on the court, but also elite executives in the front office and smart coaches on the sidelines. Still, there are a few occasions in which a team manages to acquire all of those pieces, yet it keeps coming short when games matter the most. And when that happens, one of the best ways to try to improve when it comes to the playoffs is to get yourself a new leader. So that's just what the Houston Rockets did. After years of being unable to make it out of the Western Conference, head coach Mike D'Antoni decided to step away from the team. And that move opened the doors for someone who could be one of the most creative and underrated offensive minds in the league, Silas. Welcome to Courtside. Today we're talking about the fit between Silas and the Rockets and whether he may be able to finally take Houston over the bump. Silas is not exactly the most famous coach in the league. After all, this will be his first experience as a head coach. However, that doesn't mean he lacks knowledge about the game or the league. At first, he was only known as the son of Paul Silas, a former player that broke college records and won multiple championships in the league before starting a coaching career. Things would begin to change when he received his first NBA job. He started his pro career in 1999 as a scout for the Charlotte Hornets. Then, by the following year, he became the league's youngest assistant coach after joining the staff of his father. When Paul was fired from the Hornets, Stephen followed him to the Cleveland Cavaliers and then had stints in Washington and Golden State, first as a scout and then as an assistant coach. His career would later take him back to Charlotte, where he worked as an assistant for 8 seasons before joining the Dallas Mavericks. Silas has a lot of experience with coaching, as you can see. However, that's not the reason why the Rockets decided to hire him. During his 20 seasons in the league, Stephen earned a reputation as a player's coach, and that was only reinforced by the fact that he helped Steph Curry and Kemba Walker turn into the stars they are now. That, along with the way he's able to communicate with players and design efficient offensive tactics, made him a candidate for the head coaching position in Houston back in 2016, before eventually losing to D'Antoni. Still, while he couldn't get the job that time, he kept doing excellent work as an assistant coach during the following years, and that eventually made him an even more attractive option for the Rockets. What made him stand out in particular was his last year with the Mavericks. As it may be known by most NBA fans, Dallas's offense was the most efficient ever in NBA history during last season, and the architect behind that system was none other than Silas. But there may be something that excites the Rockets even more than that, which is the fact that he made such an outstanding offense working by placing Luka Doncic at the center of it all and allowing him to flourish as a lethal threat. The young Slovenian was one of the best players in the league during his last season, and as soon as he learned about the hire, he mentioned how much he would miss Stephen while also crediting the coach for helping him in his development as a player. That should be an encouraging sign for Houston, considering their best player has a similar yet more advanced playing style than that of Doncic. But let's take a look at the exact things Coach Silas can do to improve his new team. As it stands, the Rockets' offense is one of the most explosive in the league, and that's usually in full display during the regular season. However, when the playoffs get started, it's 2 major weaknesses that are often exploited. Its first flaw is its predictability. Under D'Antoni, the Rockets made use of analytics to emphasize an offense that became over-reliant on three-pointers and layups to be successful. As we mentioned, that strategy was highly efficient during the regular season because it helped the team earn one of the best records in the league in each of D'Antoni's seasons. But when it came to the playoffs, more talented teams like the Warriors or Lakers had no problem in defeating them, with the only exception being the 2018 postseason. Then, when the team decided to start playing without a traditional center, its offense became even more oversimplified. And while some people believe Houston could revolutionize basketball like that at first, the Lakers made sure that wasn't the case by beating them at their own game. But the problem with that is it didn't just affect the team as a whole, it also affected its franchise player, James Harden. While Harden became one of the league's elite scorers and playmakers under D'Antoni, his game became each time more unidimensional. As the coach tried to take away the mid-game from each of his players, James also became over-reliant on the three-pointer. As years went by, he turned into a volume scorer that took most of his shots from long range, regardless of how effective that was. And even while he developed an outstanding step back and made a lot of three-pointers, he stopped using part of the arsenal that made him a versatile scoring threat. As a consequence, elite defenses knew he and his teammates were going to try to take more three-pointers most of the time and were able to make adjustments that limited the team during the playoffs. The good thing is that Silas should help them change that. While the Mavericks were successful in large part because they surrounded Doncic with a lot of shooters, unlike Houston, they never stopped making use of the different options. Of course, that doesn't mean Harden should stop taking three-pointers or making drives to the hoop, especially considering how valuable those shots are in today's game. But if he adds different moves to his arsenal, opposing defenses will stop knowing what's next, and that could make him even more dangerous as a scorer. Then, if he's able to combine that with better off-ball movement and Silas develops a strategy in which his teammates move more often, the Beard could also see a rise in his assists total, and that should make Houston a better and more unpredictable team. The second thing Silas will need to figure out during next season is the fit between Harden and Russell Westbrook. According to reports, Houston has no intention of moving either of its two stars. So if that's true, they'll need some help with making things work out on the offense. During the weeks before the suspension of last season, it seemed like the duo had figured things out as they were both putting up some good numbers and became the first pair of teammates to both average over 30 points and 5 assists per game during a month. But when the bubble games came around, their effectiveness as a duo took a step back. And while a lot of that had to do with the fact that Westbrook was coming off of an injury, it didn't look like things would have been different against the Lakers had he been healthy. So finding a way to get the most out of his star players will be one of the biggest challenges during Silas' tenure as head coach. But even while that may not be an easy thing to do, there's reason to be hopeful. Aside from his creativity on the offensive end, Silas also has experience working with star point guards and taking them to the next level. For example, Steph Curry has credited the coach for helping him develop his pre-game routine, as well as for helping him have an excellent rookie season. And while Westbrook's playing style is not similar to that of Curry, his new coach should be able to help him find ways to be more effective on offense. That's not to say Russ is a bad player. After all, there's a reason why he won an MVP trophy. However, much like Harden, his game tends to be over-reliant on one thing, his athleticism. His athleticism is one of the reasons why he's been able to become such a dominant player. But in some cases, it can be a double-edged sword for him. Without a reliable shot that can break defenses apart, opposing teams can give him the Giannis treatment and force him to take long jumpers. And while he can usually find a way to put up excellent numbers despite it, that's something that can limit the success of his team during the playoffs, especially if he and Harden are not on the same page. So, while we shouldn't expect Russ to start shooting as many threes as Curry, if he and Harden are going to be effective together when it matters the most, he's also going to need to make a few adjustments to his game. And while Silas should be capable of coming up with a plan to improve the way both stars are playing together, that might take some time, and as we know, the Rockets might be running out of time. After 8 seasons of the Harden era have failed to produce a finals appearance despite his individual excellence, many people were wondering whether Houston should move on from him or not. The same goes for Westbrook. The two former MVPs are already in their 30s and are owed a lot of money that could make putting quality pieces around them extremely difficult. And considering the first season together resulted in a disappointment, the patience of Tillman Fertitta could start to run out if the Ream doesn't figure things out quickly. In other words, Silas' new job could come with a lot of pressure included despite him being a rookie head coach or the roster not being necessarily the best. Still, if Houston is decided on keeping Harden and Westbrook together and seeing how far they can go with them, there's probably not a better acquisition than that of the coach behind the most efficient offense in league history. Overall, it's safe to say the Rockets are finding themselves in a difficult situation. But regardless of that, a new coach should be able to get better results from Harden and Westbrook, especially a coach that's known for his creativity and the way he helps raise the play of elite guards. However, it's not clear if that'll be enough to bring a championship to Houston. For that to happen, Silas and new GM Rafael Stone will need to work together to address the problems the roster is facing so they can unlock the full potential of their star duo. And that could take some time they may not have. But now, what are your thoughts about Coach Silas? Do you believe he's the one to take the Rockets to the next level? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, remember to give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you can get more NBA content. We are Courtside.